Welcome back to the Centered on Buffalo podcast. This week we are joined by Bills GM Brandon Beane. He's been busy this offseason re-signing their own in Buffalo. They got that monster deal for Josh Allen. We'll talk about that. We'll talk about the other free agencies, getting into the draft, and a bunch more. Hope you enjoyed this podcast. And for all those that have subscribed to the podcast, thank you. Make sure to share it with friends, share it on social media. And if you haven't already, please subscribe to the podcast, whether that's on YouTube, whether it's Apple, anywhere you get your podcast. Please subscribe, leave a rating or review. We appreciate you all. And coming up this upcoming Friday, March 28th, I'm excited to be hanging out with my friends at Take 5 Oil Change. Swing by their store located at 1941 Elmwood Avenue in Buffalo from 3 to 5 p.m. for a fast, friendly oil change, and stick around for autographs, good company, and more. I hope to see you there. Enjoy this podcast. Beane, welcome on the podcast, brother.
Good to see you, man. I miss you, buddy.
I know. I miss you too. Is this the busiest time of year for you as a GM?
I don't know. I mean, last week is a very hectic week, just the way it works. It's just an odd time of year because, you go, your season ends, you got to evaluate your own roster. You got to start figuring out your cap. The league doesn't give you the cap numbers until you get close to Indy. Then you flip the script and bring your scouts in and start really getting prepared for Indy, grind out film. The last time we're going to talk about these guys of how they looked in the fall, like playing football before we go there and meet them, watch them run in the underwear Olympics, whatever you want to call it, all that stuff. And then, of course, you're going through Indy, and there's everybody and their mother, brother, and sister there that you're running into. There's conversations about pro guys. People are asking you about players on your team. I mean, it's an endless thing. There's rumors everywhere of players being shopped. And then, again, but you're there for the college stuff. But pro stuff enters there, and then you come back, and now you're really honing in on who you want to target for free agency, trying to figure out values and who can you get and fit in your cap situation. And, of course, we were, that week leading up, we were slowly but surely getting some of our guys extended. And then last week was just it's madness for 3 days of just nonstop from morning, noon, and night. And then now flipping the switch back to college while still paying attention to some lower level free agents out there. But I don't know. It's always steady in this position, but last week was definitely a busy one for sure.
Yeah, I got a kick out of when someone asked you about quarterbacks transitioning to a GM role and all that, and you're like, well, if I made as much money as these guys did now, I probably wouldn't be working these hours. And there's likely a lot of truth in that. Now, there's a lot of sickos out there that make all that money and still want to be back in the building. But you're not getting rounds of golf in this time of year. You're not going to be able to enjoy the fruits of your labor this time of year if you're an NFL GM. So the Bills, obviously, at the right before free agency, huge focus on re-signing your own guys. You get Josh locked up, which frees up some cap space now, but strategic play and getting Josh signed, lock him in, most money guaranteed in NFL history. But when I'm looking at it, and I'm looking at the average per year, especially based upon the percentage of the cap at this signing, he didn't rake the Bills over the coals, even though maybe he could have in the position he's in. Do you feel like this is a team-friendly enough deal that Josh allowed you to still go be aggressive in surrounding him with talent?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the great thing about Josh is, like any player, you want to feel respected, you want to feel rewarded. He had fallen down to 13th or 14th, I think, in the quarterback salary rankings, which, is a little bit wild, but it is what it is. Teams do what they feel they have to do. So Josh and I, we have an open dialogue. We speak every year about who's getting paid, what's getting paid, not only just quarterbacks, but just we have that relationship. And so we kind of talked last year, hey, let's look and see where things are, play this year out. And even if he hadn't won MVP, like we were planning to look at it, I'd had those conversations with Terry Pagula, and And we just said, listen, me and him talk when the season's over first, and then, at that point, I can circle back to Terry. He can go to Patrick Collins, his agent, and then we can get things going. And that's exactly what happened. And no, I think Josh truly does care about winning. He does obviously want to be respected and get what's fair to him. But I think it's one of those. It's definitely a win-win, a win for the Bills, a win for Josh. And again, we can. That's the piece when you're doing all this financial planning that matters the most, and how we can build around it. The years it's going to be higher in the cap, the years we can convert it. You don't want to do it every year, or you just can max that credit card out fast and run into a major roadblock down the road. So we'll continue to navigate that with him, and obviously each year see where it falls as the cap continues to rise.
Does he send you like a gift or a bottle of wine or a bottle of bourbon after a deal like this is done?
The first time he did not, but he did. He did send me something nice this time, so I appreciated that.
Are you allowed to say what that is?
He sent me some pappies. It was good.
Oh,
Yeah, yeah,
oh, that's
yeah.
a
It was
that's
nice.
a classy move. He
It
said
was
at
nice.
one point, yeah, he did say at one point on the podcast, if you could have any pour of a whiskey bourbon, it'd be a Pappy 15. So doesn't
Yeah, I think
surprise me then.
I think he had some already in his house that night, and so he was on the West Coast. I was on the East Coast, so we he dabbled from there, and I dabbled from my house.
Good for you guys. That's
Yeah.
a great gift. All right, so going into the offseason, talked about in the postseason press conference, getting a difference maker on defense or difference makers up front, however you look at it. And you go out and get a guy in Joey Bosa who has had big moments in his career. He's been dinged up lately. Can he still be that guy to be the difference maker, towards the end of the season, get into some of these big time quarterbacks? Do you have confidence in that?
Yeah, I definitely do. I mean, we know it always starts up front, Eric. We talk about that all the time. We want to protect Josh Allen, and then we want to get after, the AFC. The AFC, as we know, is loaded with talent, especially at the quarterback position. So we have to be stout there, and obviously we made a decision, not an easy one, to move on from Vaughn, and appreciate everything Vaughn did while he was here. And we haven't closed the door on bringing him back, but to get an opportunity to get a Joey Bosa. I think the only reason he was available is because he has had a couple of years where he wasn't healthy throughout. But last year he played 14 games, 41% of the plays, and so we do feel like getting him in our system, in our program, and we feel we've had good success from a sports performance, sports science, our team down here with Joe Collins, Nate Bresky, all those guys of helping guys, and so we'll work closely with Joey, and we still think, when you watch his film when he's healthy, we still think he's a dynamic rusher. He's obviously an instinctive player. You felt that back at Ohio State watching him play. Like, yes, he's physically talented. There are guys that are talented, but they don't always feel the game very well. Joey is talented, and I think he's a very instinctive football player.
Yeah, I've gone against him before or prepped for the defensive line that he was on. Luckily, I didn't have to go against him one on one inside. But yeah, he's a stud. And my hope is that, when you look at injuries like he had, they're not necessarily lingers. And so you just hope that, get those behind him. It was a bad run of luck and, move forward, healthy throughout the season, obviously make a difference. On the other side of the ball, you saw Joshua Palmer. What part of his game stood out to you that you guys wanted to go out and target him, because you brought him in early in free agency? So obviously one of the guys that you guys had heavy on your radar.
Yeah, Josh was a guy that we followed before, and they had a regime change there last year, and so when that happens, a lot of times you focus on guys like, especially players going in there last year. Maybe they're ready to make a change. They're just ready to, sometimes make a deal. I mean, we even did that here. Sammy Watkins was going into us last year, and when we got here, we decided he was a guy we weren't going to extend, so we moved and got a second round pick for him. So Josh was a guy that we checked on before out there, and ultimately he played his last year out. So we knew him very well. But the first thing, Eric, when you watch him, is his route running. Like, he is a separator. Does, as I was telling the media the other day, So many guys, especially young players, they give indicators of what they're about to do, and I think he does a great job. And I was asking him about it when we brought him in, and he just raved about Keenan Allen, and obviously we know what a career Keenan's had from afar, just watching his success. And so, what a great guy to learn from and kind of mold some of your game after. And I think he's got sneaky speed on the card. He's around a 4.5 guy, but you see him stretch the field vertically, sets guys up, double moves. A couple times last year, he was open. He and quarterback just weren't on the same page, and I think one of the times, in fairness to the quarterback, he was under duress. But had he been fully protected, it was there for a couple of touchdowns. So excited to get him in the mold. He's a smart guy, and the way we like to do things that I think Joe Brady does a great job is just trying to make it a positionless offense. Whoever's in the huddle, you don't know if they're going to be in the slot, outside. We even, last year with Curtis Samuel, put him in the backfield, bringing him back. So that's another thing with Josh. He has the versatility to play in the slot or play outside.
That's exciting. It seems like his game will fit with what the Bills are trying to accomplish on offense right now under Joe Brady. Not a guy that's going to come in and say, I need the ball this many times, or throw a fit early in the game if he's not getting those targets, because he's played that role throughout his career so far. All right, we're going to give a quick shout out, friend of the show, Waterboy. We're going to get you some of these sent, Beane. Very clean electrolytes. My favorite electrolytes out there. So we'll send some up for the facility, keep you hydrated throughout this process, and maybe a little bit of golf time this summer when you're out on the course. You can supplement with a few of these. But all right, so this question was submitted via X, and I think it's a pretty good one. And they asked, do you ever look around at a free agent signing and think, man, if I would have known that guy was available for that number, we would have gone after him? Or do you have a pretty good pulse on what guys are going to get in free agency?
You usually have a pulse of what guys are going to get. I can't say you've never been surprised, or I would even say sometimes you're more surprised that maybe a guy signs back with his own team. Wow, he signed back for that number. I would have thought he would have tried to test the market, but I respect it. Sometimes, the market, for all the people saying, man, go to free agency, it's going to be great. I can't tell you how many times I've talked to agents or players. Free agency is fun for a few people,
Right.
but for everyone it's fun for, there's probably 25 to 30 that it's not fun for, and it didn't turn out the way they wanted. So I do respect it when guys just say, you know what, I'm good. I'm treated well here. They respect me, and I'd like to continue my career with that team. But I think those are the ones I see more. I would say once in a while, maybe a guy it's never been out there, it's not leaked by an insider, and a guy gets traded, and you're like, man, the team never reached out, never heard a buzz about anything, and all of a sudden the guy's moved. I would say that happens more than seeing a guy sign that you're like, for a number that you had no idea they would sign for.
Right. People hit me up all the time like, oh, if that guy was available for a fifth, why didn't the Bills go get him? I'm like, well, you also got to consider that teams might not want to give them in conference or in division. There's a lot more that plays into it. That might not be the same number that the Bills were going to have to pay for this certain player. So
Yep.
I know there's a lot that goes into that. I appreciate you answering that, though. That was interesting. What's your thoughts on the Bengals giving these monster deals? Chase becomes the highest paid non-quarterback in NFL history. Higgins gets a monster deal as well. Can you essentially, as a GM or as an organization, build a team however you want? Because some people would say you cannot pay a quarterback and two receivers that much money and have enough to surround them with talent or blockers up front. But obviously the Bengals commit to it. Can you essentially build it however you want to?
I think every team, you listen, ultimately in these seats you want to keep as many good players as you can, and you don't want to. I don't believe, I've heard people say you have to have one corner, you have to have one linebacker, you got to have an interior rusher and an outside You know what I mean? Like this cookie cutter. That sounds good in theory, but I think to let a really good player walk, and let's just say you're like, hey, let's say you got two average offensive tackles, but you've got an all-star guard, and maybe you have two of them, and you're like, you know what? I wouldn't ideally want two all-star guards, but right now I haven't found, an elite tackle. So let me just put two all-star guards here, and they'll at least help these tackles, and maybe we'll find another one in the draft. So I think I find it a little bit unrealistic to say I'm going to follow this cookie cutter formula. I think for them, and every team knows their own players and what they need, and obviously Joe Burrow has a lot of influence there. Jamar Chase and T Higgins have done a lot of great things. I can see why you would want to keep those guys. I think ultimately they're probably saying, "Listen, we're going to pay a lot there. We'll have to." How we use our resources at other positions on offense, whether it's the O line, running back, will probably be less resourceful. And maybe they knew that in their planning. Joe Mixon was a very good player for them in the past. They decided to make a move last year, trade him to Houston. And I'm sure defensively, the cap is real. And so you just got to offset it with some younger talent in some of these positions that you need to fill spots with.
Let's take a moment to hear from one of our sponsors, and that is Dano's Seasoning. Go check out their new lineup of their seasonings. They got the jalapeno, they got the red pepper flakes, and then they got the original seasoning. This stuff is an absolute game changer. You're going to love it. Go get it at a retailer store near you or at danosseasoning.com. Yum, yum, get you some. It seems like to me that the cornerback market is the one that took the biggest jump. And this, it kind of comes and goes, which positions are going to get that big jump. I felt like forever, like I got in the league in 2009 and the guards were making about the same until about 2015. And then all of a sudden they're getting super paid. And parts of that is because of JJ Watt and Aaron Donald and those guys. But right now it seems like the cornerback market's finally making that surge. Is that an observation you're seeing? And if so, what do you think the biggest reason for that is?
Yeah, I mean, I think the game itself, with all this 7-on-7s that are, I mean, I wish when I played, I wish they had 7-on-7s the way they do. It's really opened up the passing game. You're seeing more quarterback play, more receiver play, and inevitably more guys are getting more DB play as well in these 7-on-7 tournaments. So I just think, the league it is a passing league. The run game has come back some, but ultimately in those big games, if you have guys that take the ball away or they can shut down half the field, some premium players are. I mean, there's always going to be the haves and have-nots, but I'm assuming that, listen, as the receiver market has shot up the last few years, now the corner market's trying to catch up for guys to guard the Jamar Chases and T Higgins, of the receivers. So that's probably why sometimes all it takes is a guy or two that are really good at their position to flip that switch, and that's really what happened with the receiver market a few years back.
All right, so I just saw that Will Greenberg has been promoted to head strength and conditioning coach. He's been around since 2017, a guy that I had a great relationship with at the time and still do to this day. What gave you guys the confidence of what you've seen in him through his time with the Bills to now promote him to the top position there?
Yeah, Will's been here. He got here right the same year that I did in 2017 that Sean and I both did, and so he's just a guy that has always got that mindset of like what's next, what's out there, just always looking curious, maybe the word, and he understands the tried and true things of the weight room. There's as we know, we're both friends with Joe Ken, who you worked with for years, and Joe is one of the
Big
top
house.
guys out there. Yeah, Big House is a very good one. And Joe brings a certain thing that he had in weight rooms that you had and that we had in Carolina. I think Will, has that, and also Will continues to look for different ways, challenge his staff. A good young and up and comer that you always look outside when you make changes, but you don't want to omit what you have in your own building. And so we decided when we made that change to look at various prospects outside, but ultimately we decided that after giving Will a shot at the job that he was ready for this opportunity and the staff around him was ready to support him.
Absolutely love that guy. He made some enemies early when he got to Buffalo because he took away some of the favorite items off the food menus that around the building that weren't everybody's favorite moves, but in the long run, it's what we needed. Absolutely love that guy, and so excited for this opportunity that he's going to get. All right, so you got 10 draft picks heading into this draft. Do you see this as a way to use those as chess pieces, or are you truly trying to add maybe 10 guys in this draft?
Honestly, Eric, I go into it with let's get our board right. That's the first thing let's do. Let's load up picks wherever we can get them. I love draft picks. I think people know that. It's opportunities for us to do what the board says to do. And so right now we are combing through this. We're going through pro days. We're doing privates. And then we're getting our coaches on Zooms with these guys. We're just trying to continue to compile everything, get our board set because we still right now have too many players on our board. Like we still need. This is still what I would say a weed out process. Who fits the bills on the field, off the field, everything that we want in a player to grow and develop. And so once we get that board set, then it kind of tells you where do we think it's heavy position wise? Where do we think it's heavy in the rounds? Like, man, we think when we get in the second and third round, there's going to be a lot there. So how do we get as much ammo there? And that to me is how you do it. You let the board talk to you. I think if you go in and say, "Hey, I'm going to trade up this year. I'm going to be aggressive. I'm going to do that," I think you can make a mistake. Or I'm trading back. Well, how do you know what's going to be there? Every
Right.
year there are surprises. So I think what we have to do is we know the areas that we still need to address with either starters or key depth pieces. We want to add competition to the roster, and so we will use that however it is. If it means, hey, we got to be aggressive and move up in the first round or the second round, we'll do that. If the board's like, hey, there's a lot of talent from picks 30 to 75. Well, how many picks can we get in there? Maybe we back up from one like we did last year a little bit, add that third rounder to get us Dwayne Carter because we didn't have it. So it's truly, it's hard to say what we'll do, but I would say, like always, we're going to move around. We're going to follow what the board says. If it says move up and man, there is a star that we can get our hands on, we're going to do it. Or if it says, hey, there's a few in a certain, third, fourth round, second, and third that we want to compile as many picks there, then we wouldn't hesitate to do that.
I know that you'll be on the phone trying to make those moves, and you've garnered this reputation as someone that'll move as well. So I'm sure your phone's buzzing throughout the draft as well with people trying to make moves with you, knowing that you're a willing participant there. All right.
Yeah.
All right, I got a few rapid fire questions and we'll get you out of here. And this was another submitted question. What's the go-to restaurant that you bring free agents to in Buffalo when you really got to seal the deal?
It's hard to say. I mean, there's so many good ones. I hate to put anybody on. I mean, I probably end up at Giancarlo's more than anywhere. Just the whole thing when you consider the food and the atmosphere. But there's so many. And, it's hard to go against Hutch's and Chop. We go to Chop House a bunch. So um, probably those three get the most love from that standpoint. But if you had to say one, it'd probably be Giancarlo's.
Yeah, that's a good deal sealer there. All right, who's your pick to win the NCAA tournament? And don't just give me UNC Wilmington because you went there because they're going to lose to Texas Tech right off the bat.
Your bracket's already wrong. They're going to beat Texas Tech. Mark my
Okay, I
words.
like it.
Yeah, they're gonna beat them. No, I got Duke and Florida in the final. Nothing crazy with Duke winning it. I think Cooper Flag is awesome. Florida looks like the best team right now in the country. I've really tried to watch. I've watched a lot of the SEC because I got a kid at South Carolina and one at Bama. But those two are strong. I like Bama too, though. I think Nate Oates is a heck of a coach. If they can get Nelson back, that was the one thing that gave me a little pause was what's Grant Nelson's status. If you told me he's 100% healthy, then I would go with Bama. They're going to be, if he gets back healthy in time, they're going to be a hard out as well.
Yep, they will. All right, who's your pick to win the Masters?
It's hard to go against Scheffler. I mean, it's just the guy's tough. I know some people will pick Rory, And I think that would be a cool story for Rory. But I just think Scheffler, when he needs to turn it on, I mean, he's the closest thing we've had to Tiger that I can remember in a while. And Tiger would go there, and even if he didn't have his game right, he would go there and be a problem to deal with. So I don't know. We'll see. It'll be fun to watch, but I would go Scotty.
All right, last one. What's your confidence one-on-one winning a golf match against me right now?
Oh, it would be very good because I played Valhalla on my simulator last night, and I did very well. Just because I knew I was going to be doing this podcast, I was trying to decide which course I was going to play, and I played it from the 7,000, and it went pretty well. Only one double.
What'd you fire?
74.
74, not bad. Okay,
It's a simulator, so I know there's
no, for sure. Yeah, my TrackMan handicap's a +1, and I'm not a +1 out on the grass right now. I am currently leading our Valhalla Simulator series, though, and our most recent track was Valhalla. I'm trying to think what I shot because I was net 5 under. I think I shot 74 as well because I think I got 7, so I was 5 under net. So we were about even on the simulator.
So you do use the TrackMan?
We have that there. I have Foresight at home, but I might have to convert it because I want it to all be on the same platform.
No, I love TrackMan. Okay, well, if you don't have TrackMan, I was going to say I think there's a way we could link them up at some point, so that would be actually good. Then we could at least virtually play.
Absolutely, yeah, we'll get that done. Beane, I can't thank you enough for coming on the podcast. Always enjoy having you on. Good luck with the draft coming up, and hope to see you soon, brother.
Yes, sir. See you on the course, buddy.